Good afternoon, good morning. I would like to welcome you to the PAQI webinar on the launching of PAQI publications in support of African Continental Free Trade Area implementation. First of all, I would like to thank our guest of honor, Excellence Ambassador Albert Muchanga, who is the Commissioner for Trade and Industry in the African Union. Her Excellency Ambassador Josepha Leonel Sako, who is also the Commissioner for Rural Economy and Agriculture in the African Union Commission. I welcome our key guest speaker, Dr. David Rook, who is the coordinator of the African Trade Policy Center at the Economical Commission for Africa. I also welcome our speaker, Dr. Celestine Okanya, who is the Director General and the Chief Executive of Nigeria National Accreditation System and the Chairperson of the Pan-African Equality Infrastructure. Last but not least, Ms. Lily Soma, who is the Trade Policy Expert at the African Trade Policy Center in the Economic Commission for Africa. You are all welcome to this webinar, which is actually very important to the quality infrastructure community because we know the role that quality infrastructure should play in the implementation of Africa Continental Free Trade Area. I am Dr. Hermogene Sengimana, Secretary General of African Organization for Standards. I will be moderating together with Oswald Chinyamakovu. Oswald, if you are there, you can introduce yourself, please.
Good afternoon, SG. I hope you can hear me because I've been having interruptions here.
We hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you, and greetings to my commissioners. Since I'll be taking the floor after your session, I won't say much for now, but just to acknowledge, our guest of honor's presence and our colleagues, and I give the floor back to you, Secretary General.
Thank you very much, Oswald. You are most welcome. As I know how busy is the schedule of the day to make it in 1 hour, I would like immediately to go to our program where I should moderate the first two presentations from our expert. We have a presentation from Dr. Celestine Okanya, who is the chairperson of Pan-African Equality Infrastructure, who will be introducing the highlights from the stock-taking document of sanitary and phytosanitary stock-taking report done in 2019, the TBT stock-taking edition 2020, which is the third edition, and the gap analysis and need assessment study on the role and impact of quality infrastructure in cassava value chain in African countries. Dr. Celestine Okanya, now the virtual floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hermogene. It's always a pleasure listening to you. Let me go right away to make my presentation, but before I do that, I want to thank our guest of honor, Commissioner for Trade and Industry, His Excellency Albert Muchanga. I also thank the Honorable Commissioner for Rural Economy and Agriculture, Josepha Sako. It is not easy to find these very busy people to come around on a short notice like this. The same thanks I extend to every other person here, knowing fully well that we have a whole lot of important guests lined up here. I've been given a very short time to make my presentation, just about a few minutes, so I will plead to stay on the existing protocol that is established by the Secretary General of ASO. Thank you as I go ahead and make my comments. Your Excellency, it is my pleasure and honor to welcome you to the launching event of PAQI publications in support of African Continental Free Trade Area implementation. PAQI is committed to delivering on the mission and objective articulated by its institutions at the onset of the forum. We understand that our collective and continuous effort is required to build and sustain the Africa's quality infrastructure that we can all be proud of. As part of this effort to contribute to the development of a quality infrastructure in African countries, PAQI institutions have instituted programs to continuously assess developments in the area of quality infrastructure in Africa, with a view of identifying where critical gaps exist and facilitating capacity building as necessary. Two cycles of this assessment of quality infrastructure elements, including standardization, metrology, and accreditation, were carried out in 2014 and 2017. And a third round of assessment has been carried out in 2020. We have just been finalized and published. The major highlights of this publication include the following. Generally, the document shows that in the case of quality infrastructure, the PAQI index demonstrates that 48.3% of the countries that have so far ratified the AfCFTA agreement would not be able to fully comply with the requirements of Annex 6 of the agreement due to the shortcomings in some or all of their quality infrastructure, in particular, the means to meet requirements for reducing unnecessary trade barriers, unnecessary technical barriers to trade, and sanitary and phytosanitary measures. Your Excellencies, PAQI leadership and members understand the relationship between quality infrastructure and sanitary and phytosanitary issues. Consequently, in 2019, PAQI initiated Africa SPS stock-taking exercise in the thematic areas of SPS, focusing on food safety, plant health, and animal health. We are equally glad to announce that this report has been published. The major findings contained in this report are as follows. Number one, guiding principles like SPS legislative framework or national SPS committees are available in the member states. There is lack of documented specific SPS related trade concerns, as well as the participation in the WTO SPS committees. Number two, availability of a competent authority to conduct audits and verification continues to be work in progress. Number three, early warning and emergency procedures are mostly not in place or underdeveloped. And finally, it remains a challenge to provide human and financial capacity to fulfill the duties and to maintain the status quo. Your Excellencies, stock-taking information in quality infrastructures, TBT and SPS is an important tool in the facilitation of trade and achievement of our continental industrial and agricultural development goals. Information gathering during this QI, TBT, and SPS stock-taking will assist policymakers to identify where there is weakness and to take corrective measures as necessary. These reports will also help member states to adjust for good, improve on their weak practices, and embrace good practices to improve implementation of TBT and SPS measures in a way that facilitates fair and safe trade. Your Excellencies, it may interest you to know that the PAQI 8th Joint Committee meeting that took place in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire on 4th August 2016. At that meeting, the PAQI institutions agreed to cooperate in undertaking a joint project to improve the quality and competitiveness of cassava and cassava products in all levels of our value chain. The 3 phases of the project was agreed upon. Phase 1 is supposed to look at or looked at the gap analysis and need assessment. Phase 2 will be looking at capacity building and harmonization of standards and conformity assessment systems. And the last phase will be implementation of conformity assessment and mutual recognition arrangement, MRA. The gap analysis and need assessment study on the role and the impact of quality infrastructure in the cassava sector was completed, and the report was validated by the 16th PAQI Joint Committee meeting held on 27 August 2020. The key findings of this study shows that the needed standards and method of testing were identified to be harmonized so as to remove any barrier to trade, and where the same product is subject to different standards, sometimes with different parameters and values. In some cases, the products had different names depending on which part of the continent it is grown or produced, which again would require harmonization of terminologies or terminology for it to trade freely. Thus, a customer in need of the same product in one region might not know its existence in another regional economic community because of the difference in name. These findings will inform the course of the phase 2 of this project, of which the implementation plan is underway. All these projects have been made possible by the collaborative efforts and contributions of the quality infrastructure institutions, regional economic communities, the RECs, and with the funding and technical support from PTB of Germany. We remain so grateful. Your Excellencies, permit me to present to you for your kind official launching. Number 1, the SPS Stocktaking 2019. Number 2, the TBT Stocktaking 2020 edition. Number 3, the report of gap analysis and the need assessment study on the role and impact of quality infrastructure in cassava value chain in African countries. Thank you, Your Excellencies, for your service to the African people and for finding time to be here today. We sincerely appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Okanya, for using time wisely. Just a key highlight, we got that 48.3% of our countries that's ratified the AfCFTA lack the quality infrastructure that would enable them to trade within this agreement. And the highlight of participation also in international standardization being on the SPS measures being on standard is also highlighted. And the gap analysis on cassava, where actually Your Excellencies, Excellence Ambassador Albert Muchanga, Excellence Ambassador Joseph Asako, that this cassava project will lead to industrialization of this value chain. The collaboration in phase 2 and phase 3 is very key because it will really request the effort of all of us. Thank you once again, Celestine Okanya. I will go directly to Ms. Lily Soma, who will be presenting us on the study on identification or priority product and value chain for standard harmonization in Africa, a study conducted by ECA and ARSO. Lily Soma.
Thank you, Hermogene, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to present at this high-level panel today and be in the presence of our two honourable commissioners. So I will just share my screen now for the presentation. There we go. I hope you can all see. So I first wanted to start by just giving a brief background to the report, which is on identifying priority products and value chains for standardization in Africa. So the context of this report was set within the Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. So at ECA, we see the CFTA as a key tool for promoting Africa's industrialization. And this was a decision made by African member states at the outset of negotiations to designate industrialization as the central pillar of the CFTA project. We also see the wide scope of the CFTA project covering trade in goods, trade in services, investments, intellectual property rights, competition policy, and more recently, e-commerce as an active decision to promote the continent's industrialization. The CFTA modalities are ambitious, and we expect this to support the development of African regional value chains and boost incentives to source inputs and intermediates from within the continent. And then finally, the CFTA agreement is also targeted at overcoming some of Africa's non-tariff barriers. So it doesn't just focus on tariff liberalization. Now at ECA, we've carried out some modeling assessments on the impacts of the CFTA on key economic variables. And what's particularly interesting is the impact on intra-African trade. So we project that the CFTA is expected to boost intra-African trade by between 15 and nearly 25% in 2040, relative to a baseline without the CFTA in place. But perhaps what is most interesting is that intra-African exports were found to increase the most for industrial products, as highlighted in this figure here, which really highlights the role the CFTA can play in boosting Africa's industrialization. Now, this figure here just provides a bit more of a breakdown by product level and shows the real diversity of opportunities available under the CFTA. So we see the largest gains in intra-African exports concentrated in vehicles, transport equipment, energy, metals, chemical products, but also agro goods such as sugar, milk and dairy, and then also textiles. So this is quite a variety of sectors and products that we expect to be positively impacted by the CFTA. But we of course know that the industrialization potential of the CFTA also cannot be realized without adequate quality infrastructure, and compliance with standards and technical regulations is crucial to signaling the quality of produced and traded goods. And we also know that there currently exists complexity of technical regulations and variation in certification and testing requirements across African countries. There has been significant progress at the regional economic community level, but perhaps there's more room for coordination at the continental level. And we see the CFTA as a key platform for African countries to cooperate more effectively on quality infrastructure systems to support the regional integration and industrialization process. And of course, TBT and SPS measures are also decisively included within the scope of the CFTA agreement itself, which looks at eliminating unnecessary and unjustifiable TBTs through harmonizing standards and ensuring equivalence, and ensuring capacity building for cooperation across Africa, given the differences in capacities across the continent. Now, we also know that not all standards can be harmonized at once. It is an extensive and lengthy negotiations process. So this demonstrates the need for a well-informed prioritization strategy to maximize the impacts of standards harmonization under the Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. So with this in mind, last year, ECA partnered with ARSO and the AUC to prepare a technical study to inform such a prioritization strategy. And this is the report that I'll be presenting today and that will be launched later on in the webinar. Now, the objectives of the study were to firstly identify priority African value chains, but more importantly, to identify priority products for standards harmonization within these value chains. And the scope of this analysis was conducted at the regional economic community level. So we had data for COMESA, EAC, ECAS, ECOWAS, SADC, and UMA. Now, in terms of the methodology that was adopted for this analysis, we took a three-pronged approach. So we had three complementary techniques. So the first was identifying the most commonly traded goods amongst RECs. And this is quite a typical technique used to inform priorities for regional standards harmonization, since it's quite simplistic and it's relatively easy to apply. And it's very helpful in guiding how to expand intra-African trade based on existing trade flows. But perhaps it overlooks opportunities for expanding intra-African trade based on underexploited potential, which we expect the CFTA to be targeted at targeting new opportunities. So we complemented this first criteria with another method, which looks at estimating the potential export basket for regional economic communities. And this is essentially an estimate of comparative advantage, and it's a lot more dynamic. So it looks at identifying underexploited potential in the context of the CFTA. And then finally, we carried out an analysis and review of the regional economic community industrialization priorities and existing harmonized standards catalogs to see whether the priorities we are identifying through quantitative methods speak to the priorities already within the regional economic community documents, and whether the existing regional economic community harmonized standards catalogs can offer an important benchmark and basis for the continental standards harmonization process. Now I'll just present some of the preliminary findings of the report. So firstly, this is just a quick presentation of the values of intra-African and intra-REC trade averages between 2016 and 2018. And what we see is that on average, only about 19% of regional economic community exports were destined to other African countries. But the majority of these exports were within regional economic communities. So the CFTA really offers an opportunity to expand intra-African trade beyond regional economic community groupings. Now, this slide here is just a summary of the findings of the first two techniques we adopted. So the first is the most common exports. And a key finding coming out of this analysis is that the CFTA is an opportunity for industrial upgrading. And why is this? Well, some products feature in the top 10 exports to Africa, but not the top 10 exports to the rest of the world. And these are typically more industrialized products, such as cement and motor vehicles, whereas unprocessed raw material products tend to dominate REC's exports to the rest of the world. And with regards to the second technique we used, which is the potential export basket, we also found that the continental market was much more diversified. So the number of products that entered into the potential export basket to Africa, which is essentially comparative advantage vis-a-vis Africa, was much higher than the number in the potential export basket to the rest of the world. So REC comparative advantage was much more diversified within the continent. And we identified 4,077 products for which at least one regional economic community had comparative advantage within Africa. But the majority of these products entered the potential export basket for only one regional economic community. So there was a varying comparative advantage across regions, which essentially indicates potential for boosting intra-African trade between regional economic communities and promoting regional value chain development. Now, this slide here identifies some of the priority regional value chains we identified in the analysis. So we used the potential export basket comparative advantage analysis to identify priority regional value chains at the REC level. And these results indicate that there is significant overlap in the identified priority regional value chains for RECs, although overlap at the product level may be minimal. And this essentially indicates that significant opportunities exist for value chain development between the RECs. And common value chains across RECs, as you can see in this table, include agro-processing, minerals, beneficiation, wood products, iron and steel, cotton, and textiles. Now, this final slide here identifies priority products for standards harmonization. So the analysis applied 2 criteria to identify products for standards harmonization. And these 2 criteria were that the product has comparative advantage and is competitive in at least 2 of the RECs, so that it is a common priority across RECs. And secondly, that a harmonized standard for the product already exists in at least 2 RECs. So this therefore offers a starting point and a benchmark for continental standards harmonization. And based on these 2 criteria, we identified this list of priority products for standards harmonization. So you'll see we have Portland cement, fish, milk, fruits, edible oils, cereals, automobiles, and mineral water. So this list covers both agricultural goods, but also some more industrialized goods like automobiles. And it's just important to say that this presentation here identifies these products as broad product categories, but in the report itself, they are provided in a much more disaggregated manner at the more disaggregated product level. So I'll finish here, but I just wanted to highlight that we're very excited to take this work forward with ARSO, and now we're looking at how to integrate these priority products for standards harmonization within the CFTA process. So this final slide just provides the link to the report, which I'm sure also the organizers will share with you all later today. So thank you for listening, and I look forward to the discussions.
Thank you very much, Liri. Actually, you gave me another motto that's no standard, no industrialization. Probably we can say no quality infrastructure, no industrialization. And we can see the good priority sector such as agro-processing coming out. But who can believe that automobiles is also part of the priority sector that we should be dealing with on our continent? Thank you a lot. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you, Dr. Okanya, for your presentation. I would hand over to my co-moderator, Dr. Oswald Chinyamako. Thank you.
Secretary General, Dr. Hemojin Zengimana, thank you very much indeed. In our pre-COVID area, I will be asking to the audience to now give you a loud applause, but please just believe that we are doing it virtually. Thank you so much. As we go into the next session of our launch event, allow me to recognize our guests of honor, Commissioners Ambassador Yosefa Sako and Ambassador Albert Muchanga, and also express my thanks for them making themselves available really at short notice to officiate at this event. I recognize our chair of the Pan-African Quality Infrastructure Institutions, Dr. Celestine Okanya, and say congratulations to the birthday of your nation at 60. And we look forward to that nation presenting its ratification papers to the African Union for the AfCFTA soon.
Yes.
I also want to recognize our colleagues from UNECA, Dr. Luke standing in for the Executive Secretary. It's good to see you. Nice to hear that you are back in Addis. I hope we'll meet physically very soon. Lily, welcome. And thanks very much for your presentation. I want also to recognize all our colleagues I've seen on the platform representing the different quality institutions, AfRIMET, AfRAC, AfSec, and of course ASO. Welcome, and all our other colleagues from the member states that are participating. You are really most welcome, and thank you so much for supporting this event. So, this point now we want to receive some statements from our honorable guests. And the first one is going to be Dr. David Luke, who's the coordinator of the Africa Trade Policy Center at UNECA. Dr. Luke, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oswald, moderator, Excellency Commissioner Muchanga, Excellency Commissioner Sako, Secretary General of the African Organization for Standardization, Chairperson of the Pan-African Quality Infrastructure, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor and pleasure to take this virtual floor at this important meeting to launch the report on identifying priority products and value chains for standards harmonization in Africa, which is a joint effort of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, ECA, and our close partners, the African Organization for Standardization, ASO, and the African Union Commission, AUC. The decision to prepare this report was initially made in the context of the landmark African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA agreement. ECA has carried out significant research, has already been highlighted, to demonstrate that the agreement has the potential to be a game changer for Africa's industrialization. It is now, however, widely understood that the industrialization and trade potential of the AfCFTA will not be realized without adequate quality infrastructure systems, including metrology, standardization, accreditation, quality management, and conformity assessment. Compliance with standards and technical regulations is important for signaling and guaranteeing the quality of produced and traded goods. This helps to encourage trade and industrialization through two important channels. Firstly, protecting consumers and creating confidence in manufactured and traded goods. Secondly, enhancing production and trade capacity and competitiveness, and also contributing to technology upgrading and absorption. I'd like to share an example from West Africa to demonstrate the importance of standards in trade. Livestock contributes more than 10% of Niger's GDP. Yet, although this sector offers significant potential for value addition, the country has struggled to export processed meats to its neighbor Nigeria due to inadequate capacities to comply with certification requirements. Instead, Nigeria largely imports processed meats from Brazil, the European Union, and South Africa. I think we can agree that more needs to be done to bolster Africa's quality infrastructure. Only then will our African producers source from one another. Only then will we be able to grow the Made in Africa brand. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, significant and commendable progress in harmonizing standards has been achieved at the regional economic community REC level, but gaps remain and efforts by RECs have not been sufficiently coordinated at the continental level. The African Continental Free Trade Area offers a platform for African countries to cooperate more effectively on quality infrastructure systems to support the continent's regional integration process as defined in the 1991 Abuja Treaty. To this end, from the onset of the AfCFTA process, African governments made the right decision to include technical barriers to trade and sanitary and phytosanitary measures within the scope of the agreement. This offers the perfect opportunity to harmonize technical regulations, standards, and conformity assessment procedures at a continental level, to select international standards that are necessary and appropriate to the needs of Africa and in line with capacities, to enhance transparency in the adoption and implementation of TBT and SPS measures, and to establish local solutions to sharing capacity. Annex 6 and 7 of the AfCFTA agreement commit state parties to harmonize standards and ensure equivalence in technical regulations, in metrology, in accreditation and conformity assessment. Yet we know that harmonization of standards is an expensive task that requires extensive and lengthy negotiations. This means that it will not be possible to harmonize all standards at once, and highlights the need for a well-informed and appropriate prioritization strategy to maximize the impact of standards harmonization under the AfCFTA. This was recognized as an important issue at the 24th General Assembly of ASO and reiterated at the 12th PAQI Joint Committee meeting. In this context, the meetings requested the ECA, in an honored role as ASO champion for regional value chains, to prepare an empirical study to inform the prioritization of standards harmonization on the continent. And this is the report that we are launching today in response to this request. Excellency Commissioners and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to emphasize that although Africa may suffer a deficit in quality infrastructure, we are not starting from scratch, and we do not need to reinvent the wheel. A lot already exists, both at the national, regional, and global levels. Instead, we must focus our attention and efforts on strengthening collaboration and harmonization on TBT and SPS related matters. Against this background, the main recommendation of the ECA ASO AUC report are for the continental standards harmonization process to be underpinned by 1, existing WTO TBT and SPS agreements as sources of best practice, but with adaptations for Africa's development needs. Second, continental structures to support the development of African quality standards, such as ASO. Third, existing REC standards harmonization catalogs, which already provide harmonized standards across countries within the same REC. And fourth, value chain priorities that are common across RECs and which offer potential for strong forward and backward linkages. According to our analysis, these include mineral oils, precious stones, iron and steel, and agro-processing. As a parting point, I would like to emphasize that our report focused on identifying priorities for standards harmonization based on data. When identifying value chains that could be invested in and developed, we, however, also considered development priorities. The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted this more than ever. An astonishing 97% of Africa's imports of medicinal and pharmaceutical products originate from outside the continent. Not only are many of the main providers of Africa's pharmaceuticals the countries that are most heavily disrupted by COVID-19, but many of these countries also closed their factories or limited exports of medical supplies. This has put Africa in a perilous position in accessing essential supplies at affordable prices. The AfCFTA offers a platform to change this through creating African champions in the pharmaceutical sector, which can be leveraged as a springboard for nurturing African multinationals. In this context, it is critical that pharmaceutical products must also be prioritized in the AfCFTA standards harmonization process. This would help to reduce the monetary and time costs of compliance and also combat the fight against counterfeits. In this context also, it is my pleasure to inform you that this month, ECA initiated a new collaborative project with the African Organization for Standardization, focused on developing outreach materials on the traditional medicine sector. In Africa, the practice of traditional healing is much older than some of the other traditional medical sciences and are much more prevalent compared to conventional medicine. It has been estimated that around 80% of the population living in Africa rely on traditional forms of medicine to meet their healthcare needs. Yet, African traditional medicine suffers from a serious lack of documentation, which can lead to incorrect usage. We hope our new project will contribute to ensuring the quality, safety, and efficacy of traditional medicines. As I conclude, let me reiterate ECA's support to the Pan-African quality infrastructure and standards harmonization agenda, and thank ASO and AUC for the long-standing and valued partnership in this important area. Thank you so very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. David Luke, for your presentation, and thank you for launching that report for us from the UNECA perspective. The remarks you make are really very pertinent. I believe maybe in this forum, a lot of the delegates participating are people with some connection to quality infrastructure. But if you go out into, outside of the profession, you'll find that a lot of people here, don't quite understand what quality infrastructure stands for. And I always laugh many of the times I mention metrology. People think I'm talking about meteorology. So, this is something quite common. But I believe your presentation has highlighted, the connection of quality infrastructure to things really that are, within our everyday lives and close to our hearts in development and even in just our existence. Be it in trade, be it in regulation, be it in industrialization. And also you gave a very good, clear example, I believe, in that Nigerian beef example of what can happen if our quality infrastructure systems are not in order. And we are so happy to hear, of course, UNECA's promise to continue working with the Pan-African quality infrastructure institutions in the development of some of the areas where that partnership will derive benefits for the rest of our continent. Thank you very much indeed. And of course, in your capacity here representing the Executive Secretary, we hope you will take back our regards and our thanks to her as well. Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me, I can see our time is ticking ahead fast, to invite our next speaker, none other than Ambassador Yosefa Sako, who's the African Union Commissioner for Rural Economy and Agriculture. She's an agronomist by profession, but has in fact, rendered many years of service in the civil service sector in Angola, her home country, including being ministerial advisor on issues of environment and climate change, all the way into food security, poverty reduction, and so on. She's also, a person who's, done a lot in the international arena and has been associated with many international bodies, including WTO, of course, the African Union, where she is now, the Africa Development Bank, African Bank, FAO, UNECA, NEPAD, and so on and so forth. The one I'm really interested in is that she's been Secretary General of the Inter-African Coffee Organization, because I'm always having arguments with my friends about whether Ethiopian coffee or Ivorian coffee is the best on the continent. So maybe she'll answer that to me one of these days. Ambassador Yosefa Sako, it's a pleasure to have you on board, and I would please like to give you the floor to make your presentation. Ambassador Sako.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Thank you, moderator, for giving me the floor. Good afternoon, everyone. My dear brother and colleague, Ambassador Albert Muchanga, a chairperson of the Pan-African Quality Infrastructure, Dr. Celestine Okanya, Dr. David Luke, representing the Executive Secretary of UNECA, of PAQI institutions, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and all protocol duly observed. I wish to congratulate the PAQI Secretariat for organizing and hosting this important webinar and gathering together stakeholders to witness the launch of these 4 publications that will contribute to the smooth implementation of the AfCFTA after the start of trading on the 1st of January 2021. I also wish to thank you for inviting African Union DREA, the Department of DREA, the Rural Economy and Agriculture, to be part of this event. Am I still, are you here? Are you hear me?
Well, we can hear you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm not seeing my face, so that's why I say, where am I? on the mainstream, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we at the African Union Department of Rural Economy and Agriculture are fully behind the AfCFTA and recognize the centrality of standard-related issue for its successful implementation. Agriculture is at the heart of most of our economies in Africa, and we expect that trade in agricultural products will dominate trade under the AfCFTA. Ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, Africa's development priority are spelled out in the African Union Agenda 2063. Our blueprint, the blueprint for the African Union economic development in the coming decades. Especially, Agenda 2063 identifies agriculture development as a high priority, as it is detailed in the Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program, known as CADEP, and the Malabo Declaration on Accelerated Agriculture Growth and Transformation for Shared Prosperity and Improve the livelihoods of our citizens. The Malabo Declaration specifies 7 key commitments. I'm sure all of you are familiar with it, including the one on boosting the intra-African trade in agricultural commodity and services. That's commitment number 5 of the Malabo Declaration. Together with the African Continental Free Trade Area, these commitments seek to harness market and trade opportunity locally, regionally, and internationally. The application of non-tariff measures such as the sanitary and phytosanitary measures, however, remain a major impediment to effective trade because we need quality products in this market of the CFTA. SPC measures are the foundation for domestic consumers' health and safe trade, as they have the critical function of protecting countries from risk to public health and to animal and plant life and health. Weak capacity to enforce SPC measures can result in increasing illness from foodborne disease, as well as countries' exclusion from their key markets. Ladies and gentlemen, noting the importance of standard and SPS measures, DREA in October 2019 presented the adoption by ministers responsible for agriculture, the SPS policy framework for Africa. This was in response to a request made by the Specialized Technical Committee on Agriculture, Rural Development, Water and Environment during its second ordinary session in October 2017. The African Union SPS policy framework outlines how a continental SPS policy harmonization instrument is necessary. Further, the framework provides a comprehensive background and the issues to be addressed and highlights its vision, mission, values, core principles, and policy arena, objectives, and strategy. It is for this reason, ladies and gentlemen, that we strongly welcome the publication of the SPS stock-taking report, as it indicates for us the areas in SPS management and coordination which we need to strengthen in order to have a sound foundation for Africa's trade in agricultural products. BREA and its specialized institution will continue to work closely with PAQI and its institutions to develop and implement standards for the benefit of fair and safe trade and removal of unnecessary trade barriers on the continent. We will also lend our weight to ensure that the next edition of the SPS stock-taking report, scheduled for publication in 2 years, time, reflects the data for all our 55 member states. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my honor and privilege to declare the 2019 SPS stock-taking report duly launched. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for those very kind remarks, and thank you so much for launching this report for us. And it is now will be made more widely available publicly and so forth. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's difficult actually in the time we're living to imagine anything happening in our continent that one way or another you cannot connect to the AfCFTA. The AfCFTA seems to be taking this very central role to our entire development agenda. And one very good example is, agriculture, as we've just heard from Excellency Ambassador Sako. I mean, she's even indicated that obviously under the CFTA in Africa being what it is, agricultural products are going to be a large component of what is being traded. So indeed, issues of standards, coming through as sanitary and phytosanitary measures are going to be key. And so our quality infrastructure setup again is called in to play its central role to make all this happen smoothly. So thank you once again, Your Excellency. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to move to our next presentation, which we will get from Ambassador Albert Muchanga, the Commissioner, African Union Commissioner for Trade and Industry. I don't think there's much one can say about Ambassador Muchanga. He's the man whose name is now synonymous with the AfCFTA. He has so passionately been driving the process and, is largely responsible for where it is now. But yes, his background is he's also had some time in the civil service. In Zambia, he has been a top diplomat representing Zambia in various nations. But of course, we now all know him as the man responsible for driving the AfCFTA process. Your Excellency Ambassador Muchanga, I would like to take this opportunity to give you the floor for you to make your statement. Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, Moderator. I appreciate that very much. My sister, Ambassador Josepha Sako, Commissioner for Rural Economy and Agriculture, and the chairperson of the Pan-African Quality Infrastructure, Dr. Celestine Okanya, Dr. Hemojin Thengimana, the Secretary General of ASO, Dr. David Luke, who is the coordinator of the African Trade Policy Center, and in this event also representing the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, representatives of the PAQI institutions, and the guests who are logged in. I can see a good number here, and ladies and gentlemen. When I use, I may say, quality infrastructure in quite a number of my media statements, especially with the African media, the questions that I get are on the quality of airports, the quality of roads, the quality of railways across Africa. So this is how they understand the quality infrastructure. So I think when you are bemoaning the confusion around the quality infrastructure, I would say you are not the only one. My task this afternoon is to launch two publications. The first one is the 2020 PAQI TBT stock taking report. And the second one is the gap analysis and needs assessment on the role and impact of quality infrastructure in cassava value chain in African countries. But before doing this, I'm required to make a political statement, and I'll begin by earnestly thanking the PAQI Secretariat for the invitation to participate in this very important event on the launch of 4 publications, and 2 have already been launched. And these publications will greatly contribute to the smooth implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area after the start of trading, which is targeted for the 1st of January 2021. I'd also like to record my appreciation to PTB of Germany for their continued support in the development of quality infrastructure across Africa. Let me underline the fact that PAQI institutions are important stakeholders in Africa's economic development. They will be particularly important for the implementation of Annex 6 on technical barriers to trade of the Protocol on Trade in Goods. And this protocol is part of the legal instruments of the agreement establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area. This annex refers to the need for state parties to cooperate in the areas of standards development and harmonization, metrology, accreditation, and conformity assessment procedures. This cooperation will allow for the mutual acceptance of traded goods entering all the countries competing in the market of the African Continental Free Trade Area. The 2020 Quality Infrastructure /TBT stock taking report being launched today gives us a clear picture of where we are in Africa in preparing ourselves to fully implement the requirements of Annex 6 of the Protocol on Trade in Goods. In launching it, we are positioning ourselves to deliver quality infrastructure, which is critically required to enable smooth and competitive trade under the African Continental Free Trade Area. At this stage, I would like to congratulate the African Accreditation Corporation, AFRAC, the Intra-Africa Metrology System, AFRIMETS, the African Electro-Technical Standardization Commission, AfCFTA, and the African Organization for Standards, ASO, for bringing their cooperation under the Pan-African Quality Infrastructure to a higher level through the launch of these publications this afternoon. Standardization, metrology, conformity assessment, and accreditation are very technical disciplines, requiring substantial investments in capital and skills development. This particular report that we are launching today is an important source of data that not only contributes to the formulation of African policy on trade and industrialization, but also highlights the areas where technical assistance and capacity building are most needed. And beyond that, I see a brighter future for the work that we are rolling out. The message coming in from the rollout is that it's going to enhance awareness. And in my view, awareness creates knowledge, and knowledge must lead to action to produce tangible results that benefit Africa. Again, in my view, the results of all the publications being launched today must contribute to the development of the Made in Africa standard. With this standard, any company wishing to trade competitively across the market of the African continental free trade area must strictly conform to its technical standards before labeling its products as made in Africa. Let me now turn to the cassava value chain study. The cassava value chain study on how quality infrastructure is relevant for the different stages of this product's value chain is an excellent illustration of the role of quality infrastructure in the exploitation of opportunities offered by main products available in Africa. This ranges from the standards needed for the primary product and its value derivatives to the measurement and conformity assessment requirements at all stages of the value chain. I'm advised that the report being launched today is only the first phase of the work to be done in exposing the opportunities and facilitating the industrial exploitation of this commonly available tuber and its derivative products. And I can say that it will even become more important as we go on in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition, it is envisaged that similar studies will be carried out for other African raw materials to encourage industrialization based on value addition to locally available resources. In fact, work is already underway in collaboration with the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO, on a regional value chain mapping exercise whose results will promote inclusiveness or inclusivity in the African continental free trade area. I also welcome the work that has been outlined by UNECA on value chain development, and certainly we see it as a component part of the overall mapping exercise that is underway. Once the mapping exercise is completed, we shall know what each African country can export to the rest of Africa at the levels of either intermediate or final products. Other derivatives of the results of this mapping exercise will be specialization and mobilization of investments, both of which are critical to the development of the African continental free trade area market. As I come to the end of my statement, I would like to reaffirm that the African Union Commission will continue working closely with the PAQI institutions in providing quality infrastructure related support to all African Union development programs under our Agenda 2063, which is the Africa we want. It is now my distinct honor and privilege to declare, 1, the 2020 PAQ-TBT stop taking report, and 2, gap analysis and needs assessment study on the role and impact of quality infrastructure in cassava chain in African countries officially launched. And I thank each and every one of you for your kind attention. And I yield the floor back to you, moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much again, Your Excellency, Ambassador Muchanga. You know, at the end of each and every one of these presentations, my instinct was just telling me to clap. Because not only, you know, did the message come through extremely well, you know, and if we were meeting physically, of course, I'm sure all of us would have done that. But we would like to appreciate very much the political statements that we have had for the launch of the documents that are being launched here today, and appreciate our guests of honor and colleagues who have done that task. Commissioner, thank you very much. I would just like to pick on one important element you raised in your remarks, which was the you know, Made in Africa standard, because it is important, first of all, but actually it's one of the areas where you will see that all our quality infrastructure disciplines have to play a role, because you know, it starts from the standard itself all the way to the conformity assessment and the determination of the competence of those who are doing conformity assessment, which is the accreditation side of it. So this indeed is going to be very important. Africa and the AfCFTA are not about trading things that are imported from outside, but it's about industrialization and trading the things that are being made in Africa. And I think this is what we want to see. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you, as you highlighted, the phase 1 cassava report that you launched today is indeed the first stage of a long process that is going to go on, but also, you know, an illustration of what can be done in a lot of other value chains. And there will be work going on in both directions, you know, to ensure that Africa does benefit. Ladies and gentlemen, our time is not really with us, but we cannot let these people go without engaging them just briefly in a little bit more conversation, because as we could hear from all the speeches, you know, the connection to this, you know, big project of Africa, the AfCFTA, is just so close. So if you allow me, I would like to put just a question to each of our presenters and ask them to be as brief as possible in their responses. And once again, maybe we'll do it ladies first. So I'll ask Your Excellency Ambassador Sako, if please you might perhaps just share with us, knowing that the SPS policy framework, which is a document very close to the AfCFTA process, of course, was recently launched. But maybe you can just share with us what its contribution to agricultural development in Africa is going to be, particularly within the context of CAADP. Just briefly, please, Your Excellency, Ambassador Sako.
Thank you, moderator. As we know that providing safe food for the African, for the consumers is very important. So this tool that we have, this framework of sanitary and phytosanitary policy framework is very important for us to guide our member states. It's a tool that we have to work together with our member states and really define key standards. We have a lot of problem of public health because of foodborne diseases on the continent. So it is good for us to really concentrate, you know, on what type of the quality food that we are delivering, you know, both the domestic market as well as our regional market and the international market. This is the fundamental, this is the baseline, you know, of starting a business. So this this instrument is very, very, very important, and we will guide our member state on that, the issue of food SPS, and we also have a lot of support from the EU that are really working with us in terms of, you know, for us to take stock of their success and the experience the EU has in terms of SPS standards in EU. So we are working, it is a new instrument. We just approved it this year and during our summit, and we know that we are going to continue working on that. And our vision is also to go and institute a food safety agency, because we need to have the Pan-African Food Safety Agency and our labs. So we are working on that. We have already started conversation with the Secretariat of the AfCFTA in order really to bring up that institution that will help our member countries to really keep on standard and safe food and trade healthy food for our population and our communities. I thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Your Excellency. I'm really excited about the progress on the Food Safety Agency front. That's really exciting. I mean, we've been working with the colleagues at AU AIBA on the animal health side, and the colleagues in Cameroon on the plant health side. And that was really a huge gap, the food safety side. So this will be most exciting. And I'm also happy that, the DREA launched that policy framework at about the time that the SPS annex was also being concluded. So the things are just coming together so very nicely. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Dr. David, look, may I come to you next, please, and just ask if you can briefly, share with us this information. We know that the ATPC is at the forefront of research on Africa's economic affairs. Now, could you please share with the meeting any current indicators of what we can expect as the AfCFTA heads for launch under the current COVID-19 pandemic environment? Please, Dr. Lek.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oswald. This is a very big question you've asked. But let me just go back to one small point I made during the statement, and that is the new initiative that we have with ASO on traditional medicines. This is a new project that we're starting. Traditional medicines are important on this continent, and there is a lot of scope there. Also under the AfCFTA, the intellectual property rights protocol that is to be negotiated to protect traditional knowledge, community knowledge on biodiversity resources that are the basis for traditional medicines. So we consider this to be an exciting project that we are launching. Of course, traditional medicines also have to maintain standards. I think this is a very important line of work. But aside from this, we are doing a lot of other interesting things. I will highlight what we're doing on trade and gender. The AfCFTA is one of the few agreements, trade agreements, that actually references gender equality as an explicit objective. And so we're doing a lot of work in that area. We're doing work on sustainability, trade and climate change. That's also another very important area. But I'd also highlight the recent work on cross-border trade facilitation, which of course also with the AUC always as a partner that we're working on. I think there have been many lessons to be learned from this COVID-19 crisis, and certainly I think the work that has been done on cross-border trade facilitation could be utilized going forward as we implement the AfCFTA. This is really an exciting time on this continent. We're seeing a revolution before our eyes in trade governance. And I think for many of us, we do feel so privileged to be part of it. And we also especially are very grateful for the leadership that the African Union Commission has been taking in carrying us through this journey. So let me stop here, but it's truly exciting times.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that information, Dr. Luke. And we are always excited at the intellectual leadership that we receive from you. And I think that Commissioners Sako and Muchanga will confirm that the close partnership and collaboration between the AU and UNECA, is one of the reasons why we have seen such progress in the development of the AfCFTA. With that, then I will go to the man himself, Ambassador Muchanga. I believe that our audience this afternoon would be interested to hear from you as the main man at the helm of the AfCFTA negotiations, where we are now and maybe what we can expect in the coming months. Please, Ambassador Muchanga.
Thank you very much, Moderator. On 30th of last month, just a few days back, we had the 11th meeting of the African Union Ministers of Trade to get reports from the senior trade officials. And the result of that meeting was a reaffirmation by the ministers that we are going to have an extraordinary summit on the 5th December this year, where we are going to deliver to the heads of state and government all the remaining work with the full results to enable us launch the market on the 1st of January 2021. So I think two key messages here. Work is going to be finalized and we are launching the market on the 1st of January 2020. And the work that is remaining is on tariff concessions. What a substantial amount has been done. And the rules of origin, again, a substantial amount has been done. And the trade in services. And in all these three areas, they are what we call the low-hanging fruits. And that gives us confidence that we are on track. Beginning next week, we shall have meetings of the technical working groups. And immediately they finish, they will report to the negotiation forum. And the negotiation forum will report to the senior trade officials. And to maintain the momentum, the ministers decided that they will have another meeting during October, and they're going to have another meeting during November, in the first week of November. The champion, the president of Niger, is also interested to ensure that the momentum is sustained and we deliver to the expectations of the heads of state and government. So when we addressed the ministers on the 30th of September, he made two requests. One, that after each meeting of the ministers, they should brief him on the outcome of their deliberations. And we are making plans now, preparations for the Bureau of the Ministers of Trade of Africa to brief the president of Niger. And they do the same when they meet during the course of this year and in October, this month, and also in mid-November. And on his turn, the champion has pledged to brief around 15th of October, the Bureau of the African Union Assembly of Heads of State and Government, and the current chairperson is the president of South Africa. He's going to give him that the brief. And because we are very confident, we have put in place logistical arrangements for the launch at a national level, at regional level, and at continental level. A few examples at national levels: all the member states are required to start producing trade documents and sensitizing the business community on these documents so that they can easily use them when we started trading. And they're also expected to sensitize the customs administrations across Africa. At the regional level, we have requested our colleagues at the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area to get in touch with the regional economic communities to see if they can do two things. One, to put the logo of the African Continental Free Trade Area in their trade documents, so that when we do that, we can promote inter-regional economic community trade. As indicated by Lily, there's a lot of intra-regional economic community trade. Now, to build the African Continental Free Trade Area, we need the trade to be across regional economic communities. And that's why we're making that request. And we also requested them that they liaise with the regional economic community to use their simplified trade regime so that we do not confuse the small-scale cross-border traders. That way, we're going to promote trade. At the continental level, we are working together with the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area to see if we can pair countries across Africa so that when we roll out to the market on the 1st of January, it's going to take place across the whole of Africa. So we have a set of countries in all the 5 regions of Africa, and the market will be rolled out on that day. So we are very confident that you have relaunched the market and that we're going to sustain the momentum. And come of 1st January 2020, we shall create a new market called the African Continental Free Trade Area, and there will be no going back. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Ambassador Mchanga. Thank you so much. And I hope everybody has heard clearly the message coming from all our speakers. Really, I think we are headed for exciting times. I think as we get to the end of our session today, I just hope that all our colleagues that are in the quality infrastructure profession have gotten the message of how important their role is going to be going forward, and at all levels, whether it's at national level, at regional level, or at continental level. I think make yourselves ready to provide the necessary services, as business people start looking, for certification services, looking for the standards that are required and so on. We need to be ready. And to any of us who are in the business sector that are attending today, I also hope that, you've seen what the vision is. There is this huge market that's just going to open up. This is the time for you to maximize and optimize. So be ready. 1 January 2021 is coming, and we are all expected to be part of the AfCFTA. I thank you very much for the time we've had together. Certainly, I thank all our presenters and your excellencies. I know we've stretched your times. Thank you very much for bearing with us. And I would then at this point, to hand over back to the chairperson, Dr. Okanya of PAQI, in case he is closing this meeting. Dr. Okanya, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Oswald. Again, let me again repeat my appreciation of His Excellency Commissioner for DTI, Dr. Muchanga. I sincerely appreciate your time and your commitment to AfCFTA. I also appreciate the commitment of Commissioner for DRI. You left everything you had to do today to come and reassure us of the commitment of your department for working with the quality institutions. Dr. David, I also want to thank you for your time, and I want to thank you for this commitment of continued working with the quality institutions. Listening to these key people driving our continental agenda, it gives me reassurance that there is hope for Africa. It gives me hope that we are getting there. But it also tells me that we have a lot of work to do. Just like Oswald said, for the quality institutions, this is time for us to work. Standards, this is time to work. Metrology, this is time for work. AfSec, this is time for work. And my own family, AFRAC, this is time for us to work. That's 43% that is lagging behind. We need to bring down this number and zero it very, very soon. I hope this is our commitment. I hope this is commitment of all of us from the quality institutions. Once more, I thank you for coming. I wish you well. I hope to see you again soon, because we promise we're going to be working more and more and more. Thank you, and God bless you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Keep safe and happy weekend.
Thank you.
Same to you, ma. Same to you, Your Excellency.
Yes. Thank you very